Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our little tiny session on generational differences. A lot of the ones that we've been to recently, you'll have one person talking about all the different generations, and we thought it would be really nice to have representatives from each of the three major generations in the workplace represented here. We have the baby boomers, we have the Generation X, and then the Millennials or Generation Y. Know that there are two other generations that are still in the workforce. One, the traditionalists or the silent generation. They were before the boomers, and most of them have retired, but you do have a few retirees, so we're not going to focus on them. And then you also have Generation Z, and they are just the oldest, turning 17, 18 years old. They started in 2001. So they haven't quite entered the workforce, but they do have a few that are 16, 17 that have entered, so we're not focusing on them quite yet either. So the focus will be on the three generations that we have. With that, I will let my co-presenters introduce themselves, and we'll go from there.
I'm going to represent two generations, the silent generation who isn't here. Actually, I told my husband, Rich, who is retiring this year and is part of the traditional silent generation, I said, you need to come and be part of this and talk about it. He said, no, we were the silent generation. You tell me to be quiet anyway, so. All right. I'm Kay Byers, and I work in HR as the person who has been hiring the elementary staff for 24 years, so that's been great fun. And several of our technicians and mentors and other groups along the way. And I am a baby boomer. We were born between 1946 and 1964. So I represent that particular group, and we are on the way out. There are very few of us really left, and I noticed this year at the retirement, many less. So it's good to see all of you for a little while longer. I have 2 more days. So.
I'm Nikki Regan, and I'm in Human Resources too. I work with Robbie and Kay, and I do the secondary hiring. I'm moving into a different position of recruitment and special populations, which is special education, which is near and dear to my heart. So this is my 5th year in Lincoln Public Schools HR, but it is my 15th year in Human Resources. I was in Omaha Public Schools, and so I've been talking about this conversation of generational workforce has been with me for 15 years, and so it's really interesting, and it's always fun to have an opportunity to talk with you about that.
And I'm Robbie Seibert, and I'm just happy to be here. So it's an honor to speak with these two colleagues that I respect a ton. And for Kay to say that she has 2 days left, she had 41 years with the district and has really left an amazing legacy. Yes,
it's been a good gig in music terms.
Well, with that, let's get started. We have a video to show you just to talk a little bit about the generational differences in the workplace. So with that, we thought we would like to see who we have in the room. So you see the years in here, and so we would like to identify the generations present. So yes, without further ado, baby boomers, who do we have in the room?
Stand up.
Yep.
Stand up. Ooh. All right.
Wonderful. Generation X, please stand.
Woo-hoo. All right.
Wonderful. And Millennials, do we have any? Wonderful.
Okay.
Here we go.
Excellent.
Maybe traditional, should we ask if
Yeah.
Oh, don't ask traditionalists.
We'll leave the other two on the road, so thank you for coming. Without further ado, we want to give you a broad synopsis of each of the three, and we'll start with the baby boomers.
All right. A little about my generation and several of you out there, and so you're going to recognize this. Our generation was called the love generation. We came after the war, when the boys came home from World War II, and everybody was glad to see everybody. And there was a big boom, and it was a love generation, but it continued on as we were growing up. And you remember Haight-Ashbury, and you remember San Francisco, and all the things that went on during our time. It was also the time of, we were influenced by the Vietnam War. And of course, I remember sitting in Illinois, sit-ins for the Vietnam War. That was a time when we didn't understand the point of the war, and we were very active and very resistant, and there was military activism going on, and we were a part of it. We took part of making our case and stating our cases at that time. We wanted to be a part of the action and the political action that was going on in our world. We grew up in a time of affluence. That was the time when men came home from war, took jobs back that sometimes women had taken, and that there was an affluence. Literally, our generation is the last generation to have it better than their parents, because we didn't come out with a lot of college debt that a lot of our millennials and Gen Xers are coming out with. We came out with literally being able to buy homes where people had not been able to do so before. So we came out as an affluent generation, and one that truly had it better. We were also a lot of the sexual revolution because of the pill. It freed up the ability to participate in nature's activities without necessarily consequences the same way. There was also a great concern about physical fitness and health. A lot of us got into vegan and vegetarianism and lots of identification of being a healthy individual, which a part of it came along with affluence too, because we could afford to buy foods that were more healthy for us. Now, did we always choose them? We also gave rise to McDonald's too, but anyway, high divorce rate among our group. 1 out of 2 baby boomers divorced. And we created the latchkey generation, because mothers were working at the times in order to be able to afford things too. We had learned what it was like. So we created a latchkey generation because of high divorce rates. You could read the rest of it here. We were known for rejecting or redefining values. Purity before marriage with the pill, that sort of was altered. Just that defining oneself politically, taking stands, being heard. There were a lot of various values that we began to change as a generation. Along with that freedom of learning, and also the generation where college, we were the generation that more of us began to attend college than didn't. And so there was an educated population of people, and along with that became the opportunities to develop some of the biggest breakthroughs in travel, in industry, in flight, in medicine, in science, in commercialization, and in globalization. We traveled to other countries. That was one of the first things that happened for our generation versus the generations that had maybe only traveled within the state, maybe never been out of their city. We began to travel, at least the United States, and more of the world. We are now the gray generation. Well, some of us are helped out, but speaking of which, I've got to get to that hairdresser. But we are the gray generation, and we're declining. There's less than 15% of us in the workforce now. So we peaked in 2000, and apparently we're on the downhill slide. So we're going out to pasture. Gen Xers.
Good, good. Well, we're considered the sandwich generation, so we are from right after the boomers and then right before the millennials. And so we, as a carryover in regards to latchkey, so we had a lot of changes going in because of our boomers and the high divorce rate, going home, having single parent families. There was also a lot that went on in our generation for mistrust. So we have this distrust in regards to, we had Enron happen, we experienced pieces of the Cold War that was unraveling, and then we had the space shuttle disaster. So a lot of things that we started to question in our generation that happened. We are the largest generation in the workforce right now. We are also the largest in education. So we are the most educated generation in the workforce. So education, college was really important. As a result of that, we hold the largest debt for college loans. And so we are experiencing a lot in regards to debt, kind of those stressors that encompass just a lot of the financial responsibility with that also. So we are children. The boomers loved to work. They were passionate about the work, and so we grew up with parents that were workaholics, that was really important. Our jobs are really important to us too. We take them very seriously, but we also like that balance. And so we're not going to stay with a job if the job's not going to be there, because layoffs. We experienced a lot of layoffs in our generation as well. And so That kind of shift is, and I know Robbie will talk a little bit about that too, started in our generation as well. Let's see, what else? Oh, you know, we had a fun generation of the 80s, and so we had the big puffy hair and the great music, the MTV. What was really interesting is the boomers were Steve Jobs, we had Bill Gates with Microsoft, and so they were at the edge of the boomers, but guess who got to really take advantage of all that learning? And that was our generation. So we may be considered the slackers, but we really took advantage of what the boomers did. And so you can read everything else that is regards to that. And it's interesting in regards to what they think of a bridge generation for, but I also love how we all kind of gel together with some similarities. So Robbie, you're next.
Generation Y, or Millennials. We are the largest, and we have a big commuting for all the three. But the next one, raised by boomers and Generation X, that's a big theme from this, because a lot of our attributes were given to us from our parents. Helicopter parents, micromanaging parents, parents that told us we could do anything, we could be anything, and it didn't matter what our skill set was because we were special. And that is just how it goes. And so when reality hits and we no longer have mommy and daddy there's some hardship that comes about. And then you add all the technological advances that we've had. Half of my generation has always had the internet, has always had technology, has always had smartphones. That comes with a price, because now you start hearing about Facebook having these sensors on them that will tell you how much screen time you have and trying to limit that. Just because we're always on our phone. We're always looking at things. We're always trying to see. And there are studies that talk about the dopamine levels that are present when you get a like on Facebook, or when you get a retweet, or something that goes in on the brain that really brings and boosts our self-esteem. And so it's something that no other generation has had, just because the technology wasn't there. And if you think ours is going to be a challenge, Generation Z is even worse, because they've always had it, every one of them. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how that is taken. Builders are building for more multi-generational houses versus only single family, because many Generation Ys are returning or remaining at home longer. We're waiting to get married longer. We're waiting to have families and move out of mom and dad's home. It's something that we like the comforts that we have, and unfortunately when you have to start out on your own, that costs a lot. And so we're not willing to give that up. So you're seeing more and more of that, where into their early 30s is when they're starting to have kids, get married, and that's something that was unlike any generation before that. Privacy, living in a world of transparency, collaborative, feel entitled. You'll hear that millennials are entitled. That's something we're overconfident that we don't have the skills to back up what we have. Part of that is our raising and how we were brought up. But part of that is also the technology the microwave generation, things are ready when we want them to be. And the confidence that whenever you're doing a research project, you can just Google it. You can get the information. You don't have to spend hours and hours going to the library looking things up. And I laughed at that abacus statement, but the things that we have at our disposal is unlike any other generation. And so we have a different expectation of things and how long it takes. The slides that come forward, we're not willing to pay the time or put in what it takes to advance in our careers. We want it now, which obviously comes with a price, because when you get into the real world, there are challenges with that. You can read the last, but I want to point out that we will represent 44% of the workforce by 2020. We will quickly in the next year or two be the largest workforce in America. And that will come with challenges and come with strengths, because there are a lot of positive things that we have as well, because we will be 75% of the global workforce by 2025. With that, we want to show you a humorous video about the generations, so enjoy. Now we wanted to go over a few different topics and then talk about each of the generations and how that affects them and how they go through that. So we'll start with career goals.
Thank you for being so special, Robbie. So, Thank you all for being special. Our careers, baby boomers, were our goal, and it was to build a stellar career. A lot of times we stayed at a job for a long time to build that stellar career, and length was important.
Ours, just like I mentioned too, is we started with that balance and we started seeing layoffs, and so the importance of that career, very important, but also wanted to have that balance with family, because if the career wasn't going to be there after 10 years, you wanted to make sure that you made those moments with your family too.
You often hear that millennials don't have any loyalty to the organizations that they work at, and it's not true. The thing that matters for us is purpose, that we're making a difference. And communicating that from a managerial supervisory standpoint is important. We want to be building our skill sets. We want to be showing that we're not just one-dimensional. And so if we get into a job and you only do that one job and you don't grow, you don't learn, you're not going to stay long, because you're wanting to build your skill set, you're wanting to grow. And if you have an amazing manager or supervisor that's showing you how you're doing that and tying that to the organizational goals and showing that you are contributing to that, you'll have much more positive experience and you'll be able to stay longer. And that's where the loyalty comes from the challenges.
Which is also why in StrengthsFinder we talk about developers and maximizers. People that have those skill sets or those strengths within their particular personality inventory are often can be very good managers for millennials, because they're focused on that development, that maximizing of the skills of the millennial. They'll keep those people longer. Boomers' work style. We work hard, have been taught to work hard by the traditional generation. We will often stay at work longer in the evening or morning. Come early, stay long. Mature, more emotionally mature, very loyal, very confident, and very independent. Overachievers. Everybody wants to achieve. That's in the boomer generation. A lot of it is about our career. Our identity is wrapped up in being that particular job. For me, it's being Dr. Byers, and I'm going to walk away from that. And I said to somebody the other day who keeps calling me Dr. Byers, I said, you can call me Kay now. That's going to disappear in a couple of days. And then I realized what I'd said. It's like, whoa, the identity will go away when you leave a career, because that's been part of the career of boomers. What they did defined who they were to themselves and to the public.
Gen Xers are committed to their work, and so what they do very well at is working independently. And so if you're given a task and you have a Gen Xer in your office, giving them a project or something that needs to be done independently, they're very, very dependable. They'll get the job done. Their job means very much to them, but they also know that there is the reality that they may need to move on in regards to getting that promotion. And so making sure that their skill sets are always updated and ready for that next job.
Millennials like to multitask. Whether we're good or not, that's up for debate, but we like to multitask. We also like to work in teams. Individual work is not something that we normally will thrive on. We reject the idea of paying dues, and we really enjoy collaboration. It's something that we're able to feed off of each other, and especially if we're working towards the same goal.
Communication preferences with boomers. We would rather talk to you face to face. I'd rather walk to somebody's office, have a cup of coffee, sit down, have a relationship, get to know each other. I'll adopt you later. And it's the way we communicate. We do better face to face or via telephone. Having mutual interests is important to us. We capitalize that in our conversations, in our interviews. That's one of the things that's important to me, is to get to know the person and begin to make those connections so you can really get to know them. It's not about speed. It's one-on-one, and it's always one at a time.
We want clear communication, and we want it direct. So just get to the point, and so we can move forward. And so email's really good, but also not voicemail is leave the message of what you're trying to get done so we can keep moving forward. So we're direct communication. We prefer that.
Millennials prefer positive communication, primarily because that's what we got when we were being raised. There wasn't a lot of negativity. It's something that we thrive on when people have constructive criticism but focus more on the positive.
Technology sometimes eludes us. We are often the immigrants, not the natives. We have to learn it. And so we find our millennial and our Gen X friends to help us, which is why personal communication is important for us, is we have to learn it. And sometimes have it written down for us.
As Gen Xers, we are techno-literate, and so we're good and we're comfortable with learning that technology. But on the fringe of our millennials near us too, that's really interesting, is making sure we're caught up to them and that we're keeping up the pace with our millennials.
We get it.
Enough said.
Next.
Which is why he's so special, and I really like to be with him. Besides, I can read that better. I can bring glasses, okay? Cultural preferences. We see our preferences, our values, through the very person in the work. We take a democratic approach. It says it up there. It's pretty good in terms of application. It's personal. Culture for us is very personal. It's not something we read about. It's something we experience or we create or we become a part of. It's very, very important to us. We struggle with the non-traditional lifestyles of Gen X and particularly of millennials. We look at that with a different value system. You'll see it in the political world we watch in our commercial televisions today. And I can always feel that little, really? Because that goes against those values I was brought up with. And having to adapt to that is always a little bit of a cognitive process. It doesn't come naturally. So we have to learn and understand that. I'll just look at times, for instance, in work. When I go to work or I stay till 6 o'clock and nobody else that's a Gen X or millennial is there, I always wonder, are they getting their work done? And then they come back the next day and they've got it done. So apparently it does work. But this seat time, I remember Mary Beth Lemanowski would say, seat time is not as important. It's getting the job done. For us, that's sometimes a struggle. We have some value systems.
And we go between those two, but we're very adaptable, self-reliant, independent, and so we value those pieces that they talk about in regards to working on our own and getting the job done, kind of bucking the system a little bit too, and so questioning those pieces, but all the things that went on, the big events in regards to the emergence of technology, and then also our culture in the workforce when we had those layoffs. I mean, boomers did not have that. They got the gold watch at retirement. Here, that's not even, we knew that that was not a possibility in regards to the careers that we started to choose, that those layoffs were going to continue and be present in regards to the trends of the workforce too. So just counting on ourselves is really important.
We're community oriented. Diversity matters a lot to us. Security also matters a lot to us. One thing that hasn't been said yet, we had Columbine in our generation. We had 9/11. Those were the two main things that really focused us to where our parents needed to provide the security, i.e. the government needed to provide the security. And when 9/11 happened, we questioned that. Just like we question just about everything that goes on in our lives. We're really talking about that last sentence, trust peers first, then parents. That's profound. And it's somewhat true for many of the people in our generation, just because it's all about community, and your friends and your peers, they become your community.
Organizational behaviors, we're optimistic, we are ambitious. Boomers are very ambitious, and we're competitive. So we focus on personal accomplishments. Even though we may be team-oriented, it's still important for us to be recognized as the person who had the ideas or the person who made the biggest stride. So we do care about the future of our organizations. That's very important to boomers. What happens to LPS has been very important to me through 40 years. And like when I make the transition to my next one, making it as seamless as possible, not because I was here, but because it worked, was very important. However, it's all right if you tell me, oh, but you made such a difference. So, okay.
We're committed to our work. We like to have fun, even though it kind of sounds like we're very independent. We do value that, and just as we said, that work-life balance.
We are team-oriented, and as we've said before, we work well in groups. In the middle there, though, it's pretty profound. We want relationships, and if we feel powerless to make a difference, we will leave. If we feel no reason to make a difference, we will leave. That really does matter to us. And that's something as managers and supervisors, you have to find a way to instill that into the millennials and Generation Y that you are supervising.
Our strengths are teams, dedication, loyalty, experience, knowledge. Having knowledge, being smart, being knowledgeable, being the one people can come to as an expert has been very important to boomers.
Our strength is we're the largest in the workforce, so we have got to make sure that we're working all together with all the generations to make sure we can get the job done.
We're optimistic, we like to multitask, we're tenacious, and we're pretty good with technology. And it's a good transition, but we like to take risks, mostly because we don't have a lot to lose. But we do like to take risks, which we find is pretty common throughout the generation. So we will show you this video talking on that. I think we're going to be ending on that because I see that our time is up. But we wanted to give a quick minute to see if anyone had any questions about anything that they have learned.
You nailed it. Last remark. It's been such a fun job to be a part of. It's been even more fun to watch the generations change in my office, because 20 years ago when I was interviewing, only the kid would come in to interview. Now, the kid brings the parents. I sit and talk as much sometimes with the parents as I do the applicant that's going to be a teacher. It's just the way it is, and you better like it. So it's fun to meet them. You know where the apple fell from the tree, or maybe hasn't even gotten off the tree. So.
Thank you for
But
your
it
time.
works. Thank you.